What does it take to forge an unbreakable warrior mindset? Today, we're diving in with Tim Kennedy, former UFC fighter, Green Beret special operator, New York Times bestseller, and founder of Sheepdog Response.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
From the octagon to the battlefield to the boardrooms, Tim lives life on the edge, training elite warriors and pushing limits. We're going to unpack mental toughness, resilience, and how to thrive under pressure. Plus, we'll tackle the buzz around his military career and dig into what it really means to live life disciplined on purpose and with unstoppable action. Tim, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. Great having you here.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thanks, Ogre Tim. I don't know if
Ogre
you guys
Tim.
will see this after the show, but he's got Will has his name, Will Schneider. I've got mine, and then Tim's got Ogre Tim.
Ogre Tim.
So, hey everyone, Will, good to see you. Tim,
Yeah.
good to see you. Excited for this conversation.
Same.
Tim, we probably should have warned you that we opened the show off with just one simple breath grounding practice. So if you feel comfortable joining us with that, that'd be awesome. If not, you just sit there like your handsome self, like you are. But
I like to breathe. Breathing's important.
Awesome. Indeed. So, hey, for those who are listening, watching, if closing your eyes is available to you and comfortable, we invite you to do so. Otherwise, just soften your eyelids and let's just tune into our breath. I'm going to start with a big exhalation. Letting it out, bringing that navel to your spine and holding it empty for a second. And then a nice long, slow, deep breath in, holding it full at the top and letting that go. And as you let that go, bring some movement back in. And here we go again. Tim, excited to get in this conversation. So, hey, let's jump right in, man. So, you built a reputation as someone who thrives in extreme environments, right? You're obviously in special forces. You did MMA. I think you still do some of that, and your business ventures. What do you feel are some of the core principles that drive your mindset?
Man, just consistency and discipline. I think they're the superpowers that everybody misses. Everybody's looking for like a pill to make them skinny or an injection to make them strong, right? I fought professionally for 17 years without using any performance enhancing drug. I fought for the world title a couple of times. I beat
Wow.
world champions, and I just consistently moved. I was disciplined in my diet. Consistency with discipline, gives you this opportunity to have everything that you wanted, which is on the far side of hard work.
Well, what are you consistent with? Sorry, are you like, is it like hard work or continually challenging yourself or like always like, putting on a sweat or whatever? Like,
Well, you did the thing. You're
Yeah.
looking for a thing. It's not a thing,
right. Okay.
So I'm gonna say
In everything.
yes. I'm disciplined with my sleep. Yes, I'm disciplined to my family and to my kids.
Beautiful.
I'm disciplined to wake up and make them eggs that I pull from our chickens that are in the backyard, to cook them dinner with meat that I hunted and cleaned and have been protecting and preserving myself. Like I'm disciplined with my workouts. I'm disciplined with my workout partners. I'm disciplined with my schedule. I'm disciplined with my time in front of the Bible. I'm disciplined with, and it doesn't sound like, I think when you put it like that, it doesn't sound like, well, does this guy have any fun? When you look at my life is full of fun and joy because I have discipline in these other areas. Provides opportunity for me to like contribute in meaningful ways to all the things that I believe in. So like, I didn't mean to like switch back and stab at you, but like,
No,
that's
not at
awesome.
all. Not at
there's
all.
not
I
a
mean,
thing. It's
I
like
mean,
a
it's like,
million little things.
it is exactly, and they keep building up. And one thing I have on my wall is discipline is freedom. Because you're not just wasting your time, like you're really using your time to benefit and live the life that you want. That's definitely something you've been doing. So thanks for that. It's okay. I don't feel stabbed at all. Like I feel like I feel like actually a good interviewer, because like this is what our audience needs to hear. Because they will make those excuses like you're talking about. It's like, oh, give me the one little thing. It's
Well,
not
I'll
little
tell
thing,
you,
it's
I
everything.
feel stabbed.
Okay.
And here's why. We literally, like 2 minutes before you came on, Tim. So I'm doing a physique competition in August, and Will just interviewed me. We're doing a monthly interview just to talk about that. And we also talked about consistency. He said, what's the hardest thing? I was like, staying consistent. We got to stay consistent. It's not about an all or nothing, not like working out super hard for a week. It's working out up until up until the competition, and eating right up until the competition. And I said, very same thing, consistency and discipline. But here's why I felt stabbed, because I've literally been stabbing myself. I have been taking testosterone and I've been taking Somorelin to help. I'm not doing the weight loss stuff, but that comes naturally when you work out and exercise. But that's another whole subject. But anyhow, I just
Yeah,
thought it was kind of fun.
those aren't mutually exclusive things. Like I haven't at some point, I've been blown up. I thought professionally, bad jumps, like TBIs. Like
Yep.
at some point, my testosterone is going to go down, and the quality of life that I'm going to want to make sure I have properly balanced hormones. I hope now that RFK has been confirmed, perception around peptides and hormonal balance, especially for women, supplementation like creatine and its importance for women
Yeah.
in
We both take
longevity.
creatine. Yep.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
don't get defensive. That's
No,
what
no, man.
what
I'm
we're
just
doing
giving you
here.
shit. Yeah.
No
I
controversy here,
I only
right?
just learned about the importance of creatine in women's
Yeah.
diets. I forget the doctor's name, but I was listening to her on Huberman, and she was talking about how important that is
Gabriel
for.
Lyons?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
she's talking about
She's a
it
badass.
helps with the bone density and so much there for women's health and women's hormones. So, uh, but yeah, I don't want to turn this into a hormone discussion, but thank you for that. Um, okay, so your mental toughness, your discipline, you're staying consistent. How did that get developed in you? Is that something you felt you're born with, or is it something you came up with in the special forces? How do you think you got that?
Yeah, no, nobody gets it. You're not born with being, a little tough kid. Uh, it's overtime. It's millions of little failures and struggles and adversities. Being born with a heart murmur and doctors being like, this kid's gonna have a retarded body, and having a chip on my shoulder, always being the smallest and always being the slowest, and then just having that dog in me just growling and crying for an opportunity to prove itself. Like every one of those adversities and every one of those struggles put a little more resolve in my character. I think it's so unfair when people look and they're like, oh, he's a UFC fighter, he's a black belt, he's a ranger, he's a Green Beret, he's a sniper. Like that was easy for me. It is not and has never been. It's always been hard, and it's supposed to be. And the only way that you get that mental resolve, that toughness, is by doing difficult, hard stuff. And I'm down for it. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
maybe I'm
Yeah.
too dumb to quit, but like I'm here for that.
Well,
Dude,
yeah,
that's what our BUD/S plaque. So the Navy SEAL training.
too
I'm
dumb to
not
quit.
explaining that to you, Tim, but that's literally what our BUD/S plaque says: is it's too
Yeah.
dumb to quit.
Yeah. Well, we just had that conversation with John on documenting his fitness journey, and he talked about like having more capacity to do things. And what you mentioned, like, finishing sniper school, Green Beret, Ranger school, UFC, like, I mean, you're just continually developing more and more capacity to do
And
things. And I'd
capability.
imagine that, yeah, capability, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like, what's next? What can I do? Like what is going to challenge me? Um, Yeah, so as you move through, like, you talked about a little bit about the military, about UFC, and during all these like I can only imagine like these high stakes situations, like, how, like, what are you doing? What are your practices, if you have any, like, of to stay calm, focused, when so much seems to be on the line?
Walking out to the octagon to fight for a world title. Like I fought Robbie Lawler, I fought Michael Bisping, Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza. The your heart's racing,
Oh, I bet.
and hopping on a helicopter to go on a kill capture mission at a bomb maker's house in Iraq, or hopping in a vehicle to do direct action hit or support a KLE target or a QRF, your heart's racing. Um, it's it's back to that consistent and constant disciplined approach to preparation. That gives you the confidence of, like I'm walking into the octagon and I'm thinking like, dude, I trained with John Jones. I trained with Carlos Condit, Cowboy Cerrone. Like my rounds were with Rashad and Brian Stan and George St. Pierre. Like, is that John Jones in the octagon right there? Is that who? No, that's not who. That guy's my teammate, and he tried to kill me. I'm gonna go destroy this dude
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
because of the confidence of that discipline and consistency.
Right. Right. Willing to take a beating. Willing to put yourself in those spaces that are very, very challenging, and then you come out the other side, and again, it's like, "What's next? What can I do?"
Well, I'm coming from the SEAL background. You've got the special forces background. I know there's similarities there. What about similarities, crossing between special forces and into MMA, or were you MMA while you're in SF, or how did that work? And what comes into play with the mental resilience that's similar between the two?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of overlap and commonality between the two. I say it all the time. I think if you take most special operations guys, they're truly focused on their job, their core metal tasks, making sure that they're the most competent and capable at the thing that they're doing. If that single focus was directed at being an athlete, every single SEAL and Green Beret, they'd be multi-time world champions at whatever they chose to do. But they chose to serve their country, and they chose to be insert that job. I look at a whole bunch of special operations guys that have gone on to take that single focus. The Jocko Willinks and the David Goggins and the Evan Hafers and the Matt Bests and the Jared Taylors. Like, the list goes on and on and on of all these guys that have just succeeded at the next thing they focused on. And it's a testament to the selection, the character of the people that ultimately put on the trident or wear the Green Beret or are part of a special missions unit. And then what happens to us while we're there? Obviously, we're changed forever. And I think there's just so much similarity between those two things. Like, I know a whole bunch of the guys that I served with would have been multi-time world champions at insert whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah, we've got George Mumford. I'm not sure if you know who George is, but George is the guy who basically taught Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant mindfulness and meditation about how to be kind of singularly focused. And I mean, Kobe, he had that discipline, right? We all know about about his work ethic was just off the charts. And I'm sure if you reverse that, you took some of the world champions that are out there in basketball and football and you name it, right? Insert job, they could have come over to SF or in the SEAL teams and done just as well. So yeah, I like that flipping the coin. The SEALs could have been multiple, or the SF, any special operations could have been multiple time world champions. So now let's come to that world champion piece. You fought world champs, world title holders. What is it about fighting that's kept calling you back to the ring?
I think it's just raw.
Mm.
Yeah, it's you're complete. You're nearly naked.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
walking out there with shorts,
Mhm.
and there's no way to fake being there.
Mhm.
There's no I think, especially in this era of, like, am I enough? Am I strong enough? Am I good enough? Am I man enough? This is the most exposed and vulnerable that a man can be in front of, tens of thousands live, hundreds of thousands over, streaming and pay-per-view. And y- you're going to have to do it by yourself. There's just something so beautifully raw about that. The same reason why I love bow elk hunting. It's just raw and it's you. Um, covering 12, 15, 18 miles a day, 2, 3,000 feet of elevation change. And you're either successful or you're not. You're either going to ring the bell or you won't. You're either going to stay in that cold surf or you're not. It's just like, it's just raw. It's just you.
Mm,
It's kind of
yeah.
binary. You have one option or another. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
like that.
I'd imagine the presence of it might have something to do with it too. I mean, you really need to be super present to be in the ring or even elk hunting. Like you really need to be super present to what you're doing. And I know when I'm like, any kind of activity that really calls forth my attention, like I almost want to go back and do it again because it just brings another level of Will Schneider to whatever activity I'm doing because of the amount of presence that's required in order for me to, accomplish whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Primal.
Yeah, it's very primal.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, more just like, so what does it take to, you know, under here's my question, right? So what separates those who concede, under, pressure from those who don't? Like what do you think is the loss there?
I think it's those millions of little decisions cumulatively, the aggregate of those adding up over time consistently. If you go back to all of these selections, man, do you know what DoD would pay to be able to be like, oh, here's the thing about this guy that let him get a trident. Here's the thing about this guy that made him pass selection to go to a special missions unit. Here's this thing about it's just grit, however you can measure that,
Mm,
preparation, however you
yeah.
measure that,
Mhm.
integrity and ethics, doing the right thing when no one's looking. And especially in these selections, we say you're always being assessed. It's the way that you figure out what your azimuth is going to be for your overland movement. Like you get to that point and you either got to the right one or you didn't. You either like moved fast enough or you didn't. You had enough water in your rucksack or you didn't. You had enough weight in your rucksack or you didn't. You wore your hats down low to make sure a stick didn't get in your eye. I can't tell you those guys that didn't voluntarily withdraw, a guy that quit, that walks up and hits the gong, rings the bell, ultimately quits, that voluntary withdraw. Like it's that guy did not do the preparation physically and mentally to be able to pass this. But then what happens to the dude that stepped into the burnt tree stump and rolled his ankle and can't continue to train? Or the guy that walked into the stick and poked him in the eye and he gets medically relieved? There's a big portion of those, and that I think that there's a ton of similarities going back to preparation and attention to detail, and then the consistency over time of that discipline applied.
Yeah. What you talked about there is, the similar thing. We have guys in buds that, they don't quit, but they get injured and they get medically rolled or they get medically separated from the training at least. And there's an incredible kind of mind game that goes on there. Like, what did I do wrong? And ultimately, it boils down to resilience. Is how you deal with that knockdown, right? That setback. Which kind of brings me to something that you brought up when I reached out to you recently to come on the show. You said that you've been kind of the spotlight over some controversy. One, can you tell us what's going on in your own words? I don't want to turn this into a whole show about that, but I just want to know briefly what's going on in your own words. And then for you, how are you personally dealing with this, right? What's the resilience piece that you've learned through all your training, through the octagon, through special forces? How are you taking that and applying it to what it is you're going through right now?
Yeah, the first part of the question is the controversy. I've been in the public eye for 20 plus years, and a group went through everything that I've ever said, everything I've ever written with a fine tooth comb and looked for inaccuracies or took things that I've said, forgotten to say, oftentimes out of context or partial truths, and then painted a picture of falsehoods, inaccuracies, stolen valor.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Oh, yeah.
and some of the things are truly based in fact, but out of context. And
Yeah,
then some
sure.
things are just wholly untrue. And but then they painted a narrative and told a story about me, which I have no recourse besides, if I engage in it, it magnifies their story and their negative and their narrative. And some of the people that have been on the receiving end, the Jocko Willinks and the Chris Kyles, the Marcus Luttrells, same groups, same attacks, similar accusations. Those guys are my friends, and I fortunately, when this started happening, I called them. I called Jocko, and I talked to Marcus, and I was like, man, what should I do? And like, you have to do nothing. So I've had to sit here and take it.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I made one video, like shortly following, just clarifying the mistakes that I have made, the inaccuracies that I have made.
You probably got beat up for that video even.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And people, I tell you.
Yeah, saying like, I said that I had a Bronze Star with Valor. Like, have I done Valor things and then got a Bronze Star? Yes. Have I been to combat and done Valor things? So has every single GWAT dude in the history, in the 20 years that we're at war. Like, that is a word evidently that we're not allowed to say to anything that we've ever done unless you have a Bronze Star with a V, which is something that I've never said.
I've got the Bronze Stars sitting back there, no V, but I've been on the battlefield.
Yeah,
and
and you've absolutely had Valor there, John, without a doubt. Similarly, I bet a bunch of dudes like me that got hurt in combat that never got a Purple Heart.
Purple Heart. Yeah.
Right.
And like, I've never said I had a Purple Heart, but I absolutely got hurt in combat while fighting the enemy. And those are two absolutely true things. So they take enough of something and then say, well, Tim said he got hurt in combat, which means that he got a Purple Heart, but here's a picture of Tim in his Class A's without a Purple Heart, without a Bronze Star with V. So clearly he's a liar. No, man, you just messed with what I said. Like, you just took something completely out of context and then took an extension. You took a step further than what I said, and then have painted me as a liar. Which I'm not saying I'm perfect, because absolutely I'm not. And by no means have I ever tried to use any of my service in any way, but besides to help our community. If I turn this camera around, everybody that works in this building with me, all of my partners, all of my colleagues, we're 80% veterans in here.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know
Beautiful.
what these podcasts are doing? They're hurting veterans, and then the second part of your question, how am I dealing with it?
Yeah.
It sucks.
I can imagine, bro.
Well,
If
it's
you
a
go into my
character
comments
assassination
right now, they're like,
yeah.
oh, I post a picture of my daughter and they're like, hey, why don't you come clean to her and tell her about what integrity means and why you're a liar?
Oh
Right.
my
Fucking
gosh.
assholes.
Picture of me going camping with my daughter this last weekend or on a canoe trip. And they're like, I bet she's going to be ashamed of you when she grows up and she learns that you're actually stolen valor.
No, she
Right.
won't, man.
Yeah.
Now she
Wow.
won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
Wow.
it's horrible.
And
our
I bet a lot of
community
these people
each their
making I bet a lot of the people that are making these comments are just that, they have empty lives, or they're just trying to get clickbait, or it's just, I hope you're taking some of these with a grain of salt, Tim, because
But they're also and the people dropping the podcasts are financially motivated.
exactly,
sure,
exactly,
They're
exactly.
making tens of thousands of dollars
right
attacking
talk shit.
Jocko,
Yeah.
attacking me, attacking John McPhee, attacking Marcus Luttrell. They went from like one of the podcasts had a 20% growth after they dropped the video about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if it bleeds, it leads, right? It's a bunch of BS, man. Well, glad that you're handling it, not going back after them. You're just handling it. And, I think if you were to go back after them, then that would just be highlighting it, like you said, and just drawing more attention to what it is they've said. And they've taken it out of context and they're making some statements that aren't true, but you're dealing with it the best way that you can. You said it sucks. Emotionally, what is that doing and how do you handle that?
And in the past couple of months, like, I won't even pick up my phone within 2 hours of going to bed. I try to be prolifically posting, positivity, talking about discipline and hard work and all the things that we've been talking about on this podcast, the importance of family and, heaven forbid I pick that phone up and look, and you know, somebody makes a new meme or a new video, and they're like, "Oh, we got Tim this time," and that's fed on my stream because of the algorithm, and I go to bed trying to be intentional and focused on my wife. But then you have all these thoughts that are in the back of your head, like, "Am I enough?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then go to sleep, wake up, and one of those things gets back in your brain at 3 a.m. when you get up to go pee, then you're up for the next. You're up.
Yeah.
Right.
May as well just
It
get up
takes its
about.
toll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel you. Well, man, we hope that this all comes to light in the truest sense, and you can move on. But good for you for dealing with it, and taking it one step at a time. Discipline and consistency, like you talked about before. So let's come back to some of that, kind of leave the rest of the part behind. So we've both been in combat. I haven't been in the cage, but you have. So fear. Funny enough, we just did an episode yesterday about fear with Kristen Ulmer. Kristen is a former extreme skier, and a big fear expert. And she says we shouldn't be trying to overcome fear or push back against fear. We should actually embrace it. Um, yeah, exactly. I figured you would, man. So how do you think about fear, and maybe how have you learned to use fear instead of trying to conquer it?
Yeah, walking out to the cage, the lights, they're playing my song, Rooster.
What is your song?
The Rooster.
Who sings
Nice.
that? I don't know if I'm familiar.
Oh yeah, you are, bro. You who does sing that? But yeah, I know the Rooster,
Okay,
man.
I'll find it.
I'll look it up and I'll play it here in a second. Hang on.
Okay.
And
But yeah,
as
here
that
comes the rooster.
Oh
That
yeah,
one?
good.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
got
the
it,
one about a
Yeah.
Vietnam veteran, a machine
Yeah.
gunner specifically.
yeah.
I hear those heart starts pounding, and Greg Jackson or Winklejohn or Brandon Gibson, they lean forward and like, you've done the preparation to do this. Stick to the game plan, do what we've planned, execute it, and you got this. And that confidence, and being present in that feeling, and kind of accepting it and living in it, the one physiologically, all of the awesome adrenaline that's being pumped into my body, I'm gonna ride that thing. Like, I'm here for it. Like, the focus that it gives you when we jump out of an airplane, we get into a good stable falling position, and bam, what do we do immediately? Check our altimeter, like, always be altitude aware. Okay, where's my heading? What is my azimuth? Am I with the right group? Am I
Where's
heading the
everybody
right
else?
direction? Yeah, like,
Yeah.
well, all of that practice, all of that preparation, now it's execution. And of course, I'm jumping out of an airplane, at 24,000 feet. Of course, my heart is going,
Yeah, you
and
think?
it's supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And man, when you're sitting there bugling or doing a cow call, and that elk, and you've like situated yourself like just under the rise, and you're hiding behind a tree, and you heard him, and then he starts breaking brush, and he comes over the top of that ridge line, and he's now 60 yards away from you, right at the limit of my shot. Okay, I'm gonna wait. Is he gonna come? Should I do another cow call? Dude, of course my heart is just going,
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
and it's supposed to.
Right. Right.
So I
Feel alive,
embrace
right?
it, and I live for that moment.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Kristen said yesterday. She lives for the fear. She was a fear addict. She said, "I'm not an adrenaline addict. I'm a fear addict."
Love that.
Which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, but
And I
fear
don't
isn't
know,
chasing you. Yeah.
who's the guy, the free solo guy?
Well,
we just
Alex
talked
Honnold.
about
Alex Honnold. Yeah.
He talked about how tragic and unfortunate it is in this current world and society where people actually don't know what real fear is.
Wow. Yeah.
Because
Good
of
point.
the lack of it. They have
Right.
these anxieties and phobias that are based on the most useless, most pathetic, most vestigial things imaginable, because they've never experienced real fear. They've never been in fear of starving to death. They've never been in fear of a saber-toothed lion killing them. Well, because he climbs the face of a mountain without any ropes and could fall to his death because of a mistake, when he goes to an airport that has air conditioning and he's surrounded by food and he's going to miss his flight,
No fear.
What does he fear? What is he afraid of? And he
Right.
watches these people like losing their minds and they're screaming, they're freaking out, they're crying, and they're like running up to one of the flight attendants or the customer service people at Delta and be like, "You ruined my life." Well,
Yeah.
man, they made you a couple hours late. It's because they've never experienced any real fear. So like I am so grateful and so thankful for like the opportunity to be mentored by like, guys like this, my old team. The John McPhee's, the sheriff of Baghdad, the Shane Thompsons, like Carlos Ruiz, Ben Rios, like those guys taught me like to be present and to live in that.
Well, we're in those moments of like, because we had Kristen on yesterday, and she was talking about how being in that state of fear and being with the fear. And she actually had a really cool equation yesterday that I think you appreciate as well. She says suffering equals discomfort times resistance. So if you want to suffer, right? If you want to, what continues suffering is the resistance to the discomfort that you're feeling, which could be the fear. So when you're in these situations, whether you're, waiting for that elk to come a little bit closer to take the shot, or you're about to step into the ring, or you're about to like, you're a sniper ready to take a shot. Like, is there like a mantra going through your head? Is there a certain breathing kind of practice, or like what is keeping you grounded and not going into sheer state of fucking panic with all that, potential, fear that's running inside you?
Yeah, the focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
When it's shooting,
Consistency again.
yeah.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like the fundamentals of marksmanship are pretty straightforward. Like we are stand script, sight picture, side alignment, trigger squeeze, breath control, follow through. Like we're either going to do that or we're going to miss. When I'm pulling that arrow back, I'm getting my proper side picture and my proper side alignments, and I'm relaxing that front hand. I'm making sure that I'm breathing in the right way because my brain's not going to work without oxygen. Where I'm walking out to the octagon, like I either throw a jab well or he's going to counter jab and throw an overhand right and put me to sleep.
Mm, mm,
Like
mm.
in jujitsu, I either do the fundamentals well or I'm gonna get choked out and tapped out. Um, so like what am I focusing on? I'm focusing
Got a
on the
picture of you
fundamentals.
here in your, I think in your gi here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the 20-year
Oh
20-year
yeah.
war, right? Great. I actually saw this. I saw that. Obviously, I have the book, but I saw this on display in San Antonio at USAA, the 20-year war going on, and I was like, "Oh man, that's Tim." And I was like, "Oh, that's this guy. That's Jason Van Camp." I was like, "I know all these guys." I was like, "Oh yeah," because I was in the 20-year war too.
Yeah,
But
you're
anyway,
there, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so with our show, we've been talking about consistency and discipline a lot, and then our show is called Men Talking Mindfulness because a lot of it is centered around being mindful, and which doesn't necessarily mean meditation, but it's also about being disciplined because practicing or living mindfully requires discipline. But in this day and age, I mean, you were just talking about the fact that a lot of people haven't faced fear, and we kind of become soft. And with that, a lot of men struggle with discipline these days, right? You talked about all the discipline, the different ways that you're showing consistency, whether it's, working out, whether it's shooting, whether it's, sitting with your family and being present with them or getting into your Bible. You talked about all of these. What do you say? What's your take on developing that discipline?
It's the smallest of steps. I think you're not going to be a Jocko Willink tomorrow. You're not going to be a David Goggins tomorrow. You're not going to have a John Physique tomorrow. But like discipline is, it might be like I'm not going to have a bag of chips.
Yeah,
Cool.
small
Like
steps.
that's the first step. In jujitsu, it's the first step is to the hardest belt to get. It's not a black belt. It's a white belt because the first and hardest step was to walk in the door. With marriage, when like I travel a lot,
Yeah.
and right now I'm in Washington D.C. a lot. And there are predators, different kinds of predators than I've ever experienced. People that are looking for opportunities to have leverage on you and to compromise you, and they professionally employ people that are the best at it, whether that's financially compromising you or emotionally or sexually compromising you.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk into the hotel And I got to check in right there. I go check in. I turn around. I got my room key. The hotel bar is right there, and the elevator is right there. The hotel bar, like maybe I just go have a drink, you know? Or I have a workout planned in the morning at 6 o'clock before my breakfast meeting at 7:30. But right there's that's the first decision. Like, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? Then heaven forbid I look over there and that girl crosses her legs towards me and intentionally makes eye contact.
Mm, mm.
Right? Sure, I could go over there, like, it's completely platonic, like, I'm just gonna go say hi really fast, have a drink, say, "Hey," then an hour later, it's like, "Cool, last call, you guys wanna have one more drink together?" Like, "Oh, I got my room key, you guys can come up and continue having drinks up there." Like, and that slippery slope started with just one decision, and, it wasn't actually choosing if I was gonna go into the elevator or not. It came from the fact that I already had pre-planned that I was gonna be working as being held accountable by training partners that were gonna be checking in with me at 6 AM, via whatever mechanism, My Zone or a workout, app or, a Peloton. Insert whatever it is that you need to consistently have discipline. Like, I am not strong enough to have that super smoking hot girl who's trained and perfected the art of tricking people into
What's the honey pot, right?
yeah. So, like, being aware of that, I have to do a whole bunch of other things to make sure that I can make that right decision.
Mm,
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the
it's
And, like,
systems are in place, right?
Yeah, the
yeah,
Systems.
lots
scheduling.
of systems.
The
Yeah.
scheduling and the accountability, right? I mean, to others is so important. That's another thing that John talked about in his challenge. He's like everything is scheduled. Like every day this year is scheduled in order for him to accomplish what he's going for. And that's for anybody out there. It's like take those small steps. It's like what is the small you want to be whatever it is you want to do. What is that first small step that you can take, and then keep repeating those steps and keep going forward is so incredibly important. Um, one thing in studying your history, Tim. Um, there was this moment, when you were very in your life, and I was this motherfucker too, right? Very like Tim Kennedy-centric, to only concerning with yourself. When did that change for you? Like there was this, I thought it was a really interesting moment that you talk about in your history. Like instead of being just, yeah, what was that moment for you?
There wasn't a moment.
No, it wasn't. Okay.
No, I wish there was like, like I walked in the phone booth as a narcissist and egotistical prick, that was self-absorbed, and only exclusively cared about the success of myself or the things that made me feel important. Um, but there hasn't been a moment. There has been embarrassment and shame and humiliation and failure and like failing my family and failing my wife and failing at business and like could I have been more articulate in all the things that I've said in a public forum 1,000 times over that wouldn't have given, a bunch of guys the opportunity to yeah, sure, but like I am imperfect. And it was actually experiencing grace and forgiveness from other people that didn't need to give me grace or forgiveness, but they did, and making myself feel even worse and more of a failure for not being a man like them. In my book, Scars and Stripes, I talk about like this is 19-year-old me, this paramedic named Tom Way, during a like a multiple casualty incident with a vehicle rollover that had nearly a dozen women and children strewn all over the ground. And I'm working on this little girl, and I did not have the experience as an EMT firefighter. Um, I didn't have the knowledge technically, and that girl would have died. I actually thought that she did until I started writing that book and I found out that she lived. And the person that saved her is the same person that saved me. Because had I been sitting there working on this girl as she died in my hands, and I would have lived with that without a boy that didn't have like the emotional or the wherewithal and the developed brain, of a frontal lobe to be able to process what was happening in front of me, was Tom freaking Way, who walked up and is like, "Hey, Tim, find another one. I got this one." Well, not only did he save that little girl's life, he took the responsibility of failing on this little girl off of me. And that didn't register until about 5 years ago about what he was doing. Maybe he was coming in to save that little girl, but he definitely was coming in to save me.
Hmm.
And Dave Payton, another paramedic that he just died last year from a long battle of cancer. And he had an 18 to 22-year-old firefighter, Tim Kennedy, that he had to save from countless opportunities of me getting myself killed or hurting another firefighter. And that didn't register about all of the times that he went back and saved me. John McPhee, the sheriff of Baghdad, my first team sergeant, man, I wanted to fight him I was so mad at him as a 24-year-old special forces, like brand new Green Beret, getting to the team, going to the Sith. Now I look back and I just want to hug John and be like, how did you save me? How did you prevent me? Insert like a billion other opportunities that I messed up time and time. Why didn't you fire me this many times? Why did you find, like, it was just Ben, my first senior, like this, the list goes on and on. So to answer that question, Will, there's not a moment. Rather, there was like thousands of other moments of failure and adversity and struggle and humiliation and regret where I was like,
I
man,
think I feel you, man. I've been
Yeah.
that narcissist too, and I think there's still a little bit of narcissism in all of us, but
Yeah.
I think it's in a healthy way, a healthy level now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now we're able to take that and use it in a different way, use it to actually serve others, which I know you're doing a lot of these days, and we'll get into that here in a second. But just continuing down the kind of the mental toughness vein, if you will, for our listeners, I talked about men and a lot of us struggling with discipline. And maybe we're beating a dead horse here, but if one of our listeners, if someone wants to start building this mental toughness today, if you had one tip, what's the simplest, most effective thing you feel they could start doing right now? And I'm not looking for the pill, right? I know we talked about that before. I'm not looking for the easy button, but what's that one first step they can do?
what is the one thing that you thought of that you didn't want me to say that would make you uncomfortable for you to do and do that thing?
Mm.
Is that diet? Like,
Damn.
is that you stop drinking? Is that you
Right.
cold plunging? Is that you getting in the sauna? Is that you stop weightlifting and go running? Is that you, walking away from that dangerous work wife that you have?
Yeah,
And
that would
and
got a lot of
setting a
people in
new
trouble.
boundary about what that relationship could look like at work. Whatever that, I'm not going to say what that thing was for you, but you thought of something
Mm-hmm.
Great point. I love that. So for
and
our
gave it that
listeners,
discomfort.
take that second to reflect on what it is that made you uncomfortable when Tim was talking before, and maybe do that deliberate discomfort, right? Like take that step. So great answer, man. That's not what I expected, but I love it.
Really? Well, you also like I was talking to one of my students today. I'm like, oh, I'm interviewing Tim Kennedy. He's like, oh my God, he was robbed when in Stoolgate, another controversy. And that obviously must have
Romero, right?
led to a lot of like a massive disappointment. Like what was it like going through that, overcoming out the other side? Does it still bother you? Like, I mean, you had
Let's
your
let's
shot. Yeah.
define Stoolgate for those
Okay.
who are
Yeah.
not UFC fans who may not know what happened there. I think Dana White even said it was like, oh, that's an old trick. But yeah, just real quick, if you could explain that and then answer Will's question.
Yeah. I was fighting Yoel Romero for the number one title contender spot. Michael Bisping was the champion, and his last loss was to me. I beat the brakes off in a
Wow.
main event fight. So if I win this fight, I'm going to go fight Michael Bisping for the UFC middleweight title. It's a big, important fight for me.
Yeah.
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 And it's a back and forth competitive first round. very close, very violent. Second round is more of the same. We're going all out. Caution has been thrown into the wind, and we are swinging for the fences. Um, I land a series of shots on Yoel Romero at the end of the second round that ultimately has him get saved by the bell. I knock him out up against, or like put him one punch away from the end of the fight as the bell rings and McCarthy pulls me off of him. The athletic commission says that you have 10 seconds to answer the bell or it's a disqualification. The bell rings and he doesn't answer the bell. At the
So
10
answer the
second
bell
mark,
is standing up and getting back in the fight.
yep. So at the 10-second mark, I walk to the center of the octagon and John McCarthy, Big John, sends me back to my corner. That's under the athletic commission. That's the end of the fight. So I start celebrating. All the while, Yoel is pretending like he can't speak English. He spilled a bag of ice. He put too much Vaseline on his face. His seconds, his cornermen wouldn't get out of the octagon. They're doing every trick in the book to prolong him having more recovery time.
Mm.
I am leaving the fight. He is doing everything that he can to get back into the fight. And they start the third round about a minute and 50 seconds after the round starts.
Holy
And
cow.
the first series of shots, I get TKO'd. And complete adrenaline dump on my part. You know, like cortisol's gone. I'm already celebrating. I'm looking for my wife in the audience. I'm pointing to Dana White, being like, "Hey, you're going to pay me and give me a title fight." And then the fight
Yeah.
starts.
Wow.
And so I lost that fight, and I lost my title shot.
So
Right.
again, coming back, I guess, thank you for the
Yeah, thank you.
background there for the audience. So how did you deal with that? How did you
Yeah.
deal with that disappointment, right?
Mm.
And does it still bother you?
Mm.
No, yeah, I mean, I wish I could go back and tell that kid to just sit there and look at Yoel like a chomping, starving pit bull. And the moment that bell rings, don't pay attention to it. Just look at the man. And the moment that man finally gets up off the stool as he's been cheating for 50 seconds, put him exactly where you left him, on the edge of consciousness, begging for a way to get out of that cage. But that's not what happened. And I wouldn't go back and change anything. Had I won that fight, I would have fought Michael Bisping and I would have beat Michael Bisping. Then I've been the champion. Then how many times would I have defended the title to try to create a legacy? I don't know.
I
2,
think
3,
you've
4
created
more times.
I think
Yeah.
you've created a legacy, brother.
Yeah, you definitely
It's
have a
just
legacy, Tim.
not
You're here
what you
talking
thought
to
it
us.
was back then, right?
That's right.
Right
A
then.
far more important legacy. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
helping dudes that are thinking about killing themselves. You know, I'm helping people get jobs in the veteran community.
There you go.
Yeah. So
Fuck.
perfect
Mm.
segue into kind of the next question, man. So, you've surrounded yourself with brothers, and I say brothers mostly because of the communities that you've been in, but I know you've probably had sisterhood in there as well. I was in the SEAL teams, and funny enough, I met my wife in the SEAL teams, and surrounded myself with great comrades. Just I'll use that term. What role do you think having that support system surrounding yourself has played? And then now, how are you parlaying having had that support system around you and now supporting others, paying it forward?
Man, it's a great question. All of this controversy and hate and people attacking me, I have gotten the greatest blessing I could possibly ever imagine, which is I got to find out who my friends are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a gift.
All the business that I've lost, all the partners that are like, wait, is Tim actually stolen valor? I'm not going to work with him. Like, dude, I would have paid to know this about these people a year ago. It's the greatest gift. And
Great way of looking at that. And
yeah, as they come back next year, you know, and they're like, hey, like I see you're working for Trump and I like see all the great things that you're doing. I'm like, but I know who you are. Like you showed me already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fuck off.
Um,
I'm sorry. Sorry. Not you, but I'm saying these people that are like, Wow, showing their real who they are.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
There's my phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna drive 10 hours to get a hotel room to sleep in the same bed as a guy that's struggling and in crisis until I can find him a facility. Like that, that's gonna happen. Um, wife called me, says, "Hey, I can't find insert dude's name. I'm gonna find him." Like that's gonna happen. The when we raised our hands and we swore that we're going to protect the Constitution against foreign domestic enemies, like actually wasn't anything in that oath of enlistment that talked about what we were going to do to the people to the left and to the right.
Hmm.
But by far, yeah, that is what it came down to. Like all those oaths almost didn't matter. What mattered was the dude to my left and the dude to my right.
Right.
Yeah. Mm.
And that's how it is today, and will be until the day that I die.
Yeah. Like living in service of others and being with others and making a difference for other people's lives. I mean, that's what we built this whole show on, and this is like, we just crossed the top like 1.5% threshold for global podcasts, and it's all in the service of other people. I mean, and mostly men. Well, one final question. Thank you, Tim, for your time today. Is, you're doing all these wonderful things. You've had such a wonderful life. Like, how are you balancing all this activity with recovery and rest? Like, what is your recipe there? Because I imagine that's got to be pretty important for you too.
Yeah, so I have like these 3 rings of influence, and I have these 3 buckets of time. The 3 rings of influence are like my immediate family and my closest friends, super small, like under 10 people. And then it's like the community of like my businesses and my all the people I get to work with, like the people in my unit. And then the third is like the kind of greater, larger national scale. And those 3 rings are going to be different for every person. Sometimes like obviously the family is going to be the most immediate and intimate. And then maybe they're like volunteering to be part of the school board, or they're volunteering at their church. Insert like whatever mechanism they're using to contribute positively into that next ring. And then maybe they don't have any involvement in that third ring, and their time should be appropriate for the amount of influence that they have in each of those corresponding rings. So like if you're just voting on November, fine, good. That's totally fine. Then don't waste your time on the phone reading about things that you can influence. Then on the 3 buckets of time, I have the most important bucket, which is connected to that first ring, which is my family. I want to spend all of my available time that I possibly can with them. But I can't be with them if I can't provide for them. I can't protect them, and I don't deserve to be there with them, or my wife doesn't look at me in the way that I want her to look at me, which is like,
I get it.
yeah. So
Yep.
I have
Another
to
reason
look
I'm doing the
hard,
physique competition.
which moves into the second bucket, which is the me bucket. That is like my soul, my intellect, what books am I reading, how often I'm working out, who I'm training with, like the things that I'm pouring into myself. Am I meditating? Am I cold plunging? Am I using a sauna? Like that's going to be different for every person depending on like what their modality of thing is. But that's the third bucket of time, or the second bucket of time. And the third and last bucket of time, directly correlated to those first 2, my family, me, is my ability to make money, to be able to provide for my family, to be able to protect my family. Like I can't have time with my family when I can't put food on the table, when I can't protect them or pay for their school or pay for their sports. Similarly, like I'm not going to be a good employer. I'm not going to be a good president of business if I can't operate at a high critical thinking level. So like they're very complementary buckets, but I divide my time off that first bucket, and then I am supported in how I allocate time in those second other buckets by my purpose of being here, which is being a provider or protector for my family and my community.
I love it, man. It's very intentional very intentional and disciplined. Like we started the show off, right? Then that rest and recovery is part of that. But I also know that first bucket family and that first ring family, You've got, I think you said your 5-year-old being home in like another minute or so. So we'll wrap it up there, brother. This has been fantastic. Tim, thank you so much for being with us here, man. Fantastic episode. For those who are wanting to find out more about you and the support that you're offering to veterans these days, how can they find you and find out more about what you're doing?
All of my stuff is Tim Kennedy MMA, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But none of that stuff's real. Come and train with me. Come to Sheepdog Response, which is where I'm at right now.
There it is.
Yeah, come shoot with me. Come train with me. I'm about to go out and teach a preschool jiu-jitsu class right now.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
That's why I'm here waiting for my daughter, because she's a 5-year-old and she's in that preschool kindergarten class.
That's awesome.
That's
and
gotta be
then
a lot
on
of fun.
the veteran side, we have Heroes Jiu-Jitsu. I have an education program called Apogee Strong. We opened a couple hundred schools trying to bring sovereignty back to the family. So, go check them things out. Oh, I see that dude,
Yeah.
long-haired savage walking
yeah.
in.
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure that I
Awesome.
check out your book, Tim. It's just something looks so inspiring. So, but again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all the great work you're putting in the world. And thank you so much.
Yeah, Tim. Awesome show. And just in the interest of time, again, normally we wrap it up with another grounding practice, but we
We'll
don't let
just
you
go.
go, brother.
Yeah.
And for our audience, if you got something out of this episode, which I know you did, please share it
Yeah.
with your friends, your family. Let's help get this warrior mindset out there, this discipline and this consistency for more people.
Yeah.
Tim, great having you, brother. And for our audience, thank
Yeah.
you for tuning in. Until next time, take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Tim. Peace, everybody.
Appreciate
Thank
you guys.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.